first, I just want to start off and say that Sunday, November 22nd is our 1-year anniversary of the Imagine More campaign. So that's a big milestone. So I'm excited to give this update because there's a lot to talk about. Also just wanted to say grateful to be here. This is really fun with Zoom, especially nowadays where you don't get together with people very often. This is really nice. And I just want to say, I think everyone on this call kind of knows, but you should really know that it is appreciated when you contribute to Imagine More, because this is something that there's a lot of people working really hard on and a lot of people are excited about. And there's been a lot of ups and downs on the project if you've tracked it for any amount of time. But I will have to say that this is the most optimistic I've ever been that we are close to getting a building. So basically, I'm going to do a quick recap of what we've gone through over the past year, touch a little bit on what we're going to look forward to in 21, and then we can open it up to questions. Okay, so I want to do a screen share. Okay. So you guys should be able to see my PowerPoint. Can you see that? Bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that. How do I play this? Okay, good. You can see it? The image?
Feel free to do full screen, Amy, if you'd like. Okay, good.
Okay, yeah, it's full screen on mine, so I don't know if you guys want to make yours bigger too. So we're just going to start really high level, simple, because I also want to make sure, different people joined in on this at different points in time. So from the beginning, this is our property up at 1027 Pine Hollow Court. So you can see downtown's over here. This is up by Mount Diablo Elementary School. And so what we are trying to do is we are proposing that we are going to build a 14,000 square foot church. We're going to have outdoor spaces, a parking lot, trash enclosure, landscaping, fencing, utilities, and street improvements. And so this phase that we're in right now that we've been working on is the entitlements. And this is where we work with the city of Clayton and the planning department. And basically, we're getting permission to build this project on it. So there's 3 phases. We're in this phase 1 with the planning department. So this is the entitlements, and this is where you're getting permission to actually build this project. The next step is with the building department, which will be with the city of Concord. And this is where we do the construction documents. So this is where you get the technical drawings, you get all the engineering done, and the architecture drawings. And then step 3 is construction. It's obviously pretty straightforward. That's when you build it. So that's the process that we have. And I feel like there's a secret step 4 is when you celebrate because you get the building. But as far as everyone concerned, that's how it works. So as I am gonna go through a bunch of slides just to give you a quick overview of what we have done this year. But I also wanted to give a little insight on the staffing at the city in 2020, because we worked with a lot of different people. So some people thought this was interesting. When the Imagine More campaign started, we were working with David. And then David left, and then we were working with Dana. And then Dana left, and then we were working with Matthew. And then Matthew actually handed over all the reins to Holly, who is still technically under Matthew because Holly is a consultant working outside of the city physically, but she is our main point of contact now. So all of this has happened during the past year, but I'll show you all the progress we've made despite that. And obviously COVID has gone on as well. So there's going to be a bunch of slides, and I put these all together so that when we do Q&A, we might want to touch back on them. So it's just supposed to give you the sense of some of the topics that we're going through. So the big one is the church and the city have selected the environmental consultant. This is one of the huge things that we're concerned about, because we want to make sure that we are not going to have to do a big environmental remediation or any sort of major environmental impact report. So we are working with Rainey Consulting and this gentleman named Nick. This year, we've also been developing the civil engineering and the stormwater design. And part of this is making sure that we are very carefully calculating how the water is drained from the site, so we're not interfering with the creek down at the bottom of the slope, because that would potentially be an environmental concern. And we are working with BKF engineers. We've continued to develop the site plan. Nothing too major. Parking lot has stayed the same, but we've been updating some fencing with the city, discussing the different screening, talking about the limit of work, that we are not going to disturb most of the hillside. Most of that will remain natural. We're just building on the top part of the slope, which is flat. And we're also working on improving the outdoor gathering spaces. And this was already a comment pre-COVID. And then with COVID, only more and more important that we have spaces indoor and outdoor where we can gather. Floor planning programming continues to evolve with different requirements of the building. So that has developed this year. One of the things the city talks about, the planning department, is they like to talk about the building materials and start to get a sense of what the building can look like. And so we've been developing these designs in terms of making it feel like it is a building in Clayton. It does have a little bit of a rustic feel to it, but also, you know, not just totally historic and looking dated or cheesy. And then also working with the scale to do things like where this roof comes out in front so it looks more approachable instead of having a big building mass, which wouldn't really fit the neighborhood as well since it's more residential. So we have this elevation, the west, which faces Pine Hollow Court. We have our south elevation, which actually is towards Mick's house right now. It's towards the mountainside. And this will be the main entrance where the parking lot is. And then we have the side with the deck is overlooking the hill. And then we have the north. Oh, I apologize, this didn't update at the top. This is the north, so as you're driving in from the top, and if you were to stand at the school, this would be that side that you're seeing. We got our playground over here by the kids area. And then another thing we've been doing with the city is working on photo simulations. And so part of what the planning department and the environmental consultants are concerned with is how this building is going to interface with the existing and surrounding context. So we do studies like this to start to understand, okay, what's going to be happening. So if you were standing at the bottom of the hill, you would see that there's a building at the top, there's a deck protruding out. If you're coming down the street, you start to understand, okay, there's going to be a parking lot off to the left. And things like this, you know, at first glance, you say, where's the building? Yeah, that's actually kind of good because that means that the neighbors aren't saying, hey, there's a huge building right on the street face. It's taking up everything. It's out of context. No, it's set back. It's calmer. And then you get to see it like if you were standing across the street. Okay, you look past the fence, you look in at the property. And then if you're at the end of the court, you're looking back up at the main entrance side. And so these are the sort of conversations and explorations that we're doing with the city so that we can just show that we are acknowledging the surrounding context and it's a project that will fit the site. We've also been working on, this year we developed a photometric plan, which calculates the lighting levels in the parking lot. So you want to get a minimum level reach so that it is safer and well lit, but also not too bright so that you're disrupting the neighbors or creating excess light. We've been talking about landscaping with the city because we have water conservation requirements and they have a series of forms that are required in order to make sure that we're selecting trees and ground cover and shrubs that are all within their just preference, and then also some of them are for water conservation reasons. And then there's a whole list of consultant reports that have been going on. So there's a traffic study. The geotechnical report, we already did the original one, but then this year, one of the updates is that it's getting peer reviewed. There's a noise report, a bio report, cultural report, phase 1 report, arborist report. All of these are, again, to understand the different aspects of the project and how it's going to affect the site and the neighbors. And so that's the end of the slide. So I was just going to go back to stop sharing my screen. That gives you a quick insight on what we've done this year. And so looking forward to 2021, one of the things we're going to be implementing is a newsletter. And so this is going to go out so that people can also get more regular updates on what's going on. We're looking towards hopefully January or February for our city hearing. We're currently pushing with Rainey, the environmental consultant, and the city to lock that date in. So once we know, obviously we'll be very excited to let you all know, but that's coming soon because about more than half of the reports are already complete altogether. And then those all have to get completed before the city hearing. So ideally what we're looking at was that these entitlements will be completed in the late spring, probably around April or May. And that will be huge because that will allow us to know that there's no concern about big environmental issues. We get permission to build and we can actually start with the construction documents, which is then the straightforward process of just making sure that it meets architectural code, doing all the engineering. I don't want to minimize it that it's not a little task, but in my opinion, it's more straightforward because it's by the building code and there's sets of rules. It's less about, materiality and how it fits in the neighborhood and what the neighbors think and all the environmental concerns. So we would be able to go to that phase. And that is also why I want to give the church and everyone a heads up that I know a lot of people get excited and I definitely want to collect input. And so when we get to this part, probably, March, April, May, that's when we want to collect all of the input on the little things, which haven't mattered at this point because the planning department doesn't necessarily care about a door opening a certain way into the kids' room or any of these things that are really important to us. They don't even ask about it. But for this next phase where we go to construction documents, that's where we can get your input locked in on the documents. So and then obviously we go from there and we go to construction and we get a church and we'll get a church home.